Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for joining our second live stream here on YouTube. I am sorry that I have man voice. I just woke up and it's like 5:30 in the morning. So let's get started. Yalla, bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'een. Ihdina الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. اللهم اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Okay, so today's topic is about marriage, and I just want to say, if for whatever reason you're not able to access the chat, or if you're getting an error when you try it and put a message in the chat box. I know a couple of you reached out to me last time. So if that's the case, then just, I have my phone next to me, so just either send me a Snapchat message or you can comment on the live stream promo pic on Instagram and I'll see your question. All right, bismillah. So we're talking today about marriage, and somebody gave me the idea actually for this talk. Because they had seen a post I put up on Instagram and it really related to them. So about a month ago was my husband and I's 6-year anniversary, alhamdulillah, and I just put up, a picture of us, and what I was saying is that I got married at an age that was considered to be somewhat old in our community. I was 25. And I know for a lot of people today that might be like, what do you mean that's like totally normal? But when I was 18, 19, I would say like all my friends are just dropping like flies left and right. And by the time I was like maybe 22 or 23, the majority of my friends were already married. So by 25, I was considered somewhat late. In my community at least. And so I just kind of had a message to everyone out there who was still single and felt that way. And that, this is all written by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the right time is going to come for you at whatever age it is. And just to go into my story just a tiny bit, subhanAllah, for myself, I had just graduated law school, and I literally graduated law school, and I think I met Ahmed like 3 months after graduation. And, subhanAllah, had I met him any earlier in law school, something's got to give, because law school is so intense and it's so time consuming. And then trying to get to know somebody to marriage also needs a lot of time and commitment, and is also very time consuming. And so I wouldn't have been able to juggle both. So subhanAllah, truly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just sent it to me at the perfect time for me. And, that was kind of my message, that it's Allah's plan. Things will happen when it's right for you. And if you're feeling like, if you're losing patience, or you're feeling like, when is it going to happen for me? Just know that if it hasn't happened yet, that means it's not the right time yet. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what is right for you. I think I quoted the ayah that, it may be that you dislike a thing, but it is good for you. And it may be that you love a thing, but it's actually bad for you. So that's something to keep in mind if you're feeling, kind of stressed about it. And just in general, I think that our community as well places a big emphasis on marriage, understandably so, right? I mean, it's half our deen. We learn that as kids growing up, and we don't date, right? So it's like marriage is really our only option. And so, we really look forward to it, and I understand that why there's an emphasis on it. But I think what I really wanted to stress today, for those of you who are and aren't married, is just that process. So yes, there's a huge emphasis on marriage, and that's very important. But I think and I saw this kind of when I was back home, and something that I think is really important for us to talk about is that, yes, it's important to get married. Yes, married, and it's very important to be sure that you have found the right husband. But it's also very important to make sure that you're investing in yourself as well. So what I was saying that I saw when I went back home is, you know, girls went to school, they went to college, they got a degree, and then they got married, they had a lot of kids, they bought a house, you know, they did all the things that they just kind of checked all those things off. And then they kind of looked around one day and they were like, okay, now what? What am I supposed to be doing? And I think because there is such an emphasis on marriage and checking these little boxes off, that somewhere along the way, we forgot to then think about ourselves and our purpose and what our sense of fulfillment is, or sense of purpose is, and what we're supposed to be doing. Because yes, having kids is fantastic, and obviously having a husband is amazing, but at the end of the day, you still need something for yourself. You need, sorry, I need to make sure that I can access the chat box, because last time I couldn't, so. Sorry. Okay, so what I was saying is it's very important to make sure that you have something for yourself. So for me personally, I didn't even think about marriage truly until I kind of had that that down and understood exactly, you know, what my I'm so sorry, you guys. I just really need to make sure I'm set up here. Okay, so I'm sorry. So I truly didn't think about marriage until I had everything figured out. So I knew, okay, here is what my goals are. Here's what I want to achieve out of life. Here's what I ultimately would need my husband to understand of me, because here are the things that I want to do. And so I truly had to look and soul search myself to understand exactly what I wanted out of life and what I wanted to do before I could then even think about, you know, the answers to any prospective husband that would come and say, okay, what are your goals? And I think actually it was one person who came to like, you know, a suitor or whatever when I was young, that asked me that question, and I was like, I don't know what my goal is. I remember saying, like, to get to Jannah. Well, obviously that's everybody's goal, but how you plan on getting there? And I really didn't have an answer to that question at all. So I actually started really thinking, okay, well, what do I want to do? And then when I got into law school, and I was very, very heavily engrossed in focusing on civil rights, and I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Outside of the home, that includes, you know, having probably a busy, hectic schedule, not being paid very much, you know, all those things. And so I needed whoever was interested in me for marriage to understand those things. So what I'm saying is I think it's really important to have a very good understanding of yourself and what you want. First, knowing what your purpose is and what you want to achieve out of life. What are your goals? And to know what those are, you first have to, and I say this all the time, you have to know yourself and your strengths and your weaknesses and what you can give to your community. How are you going to serve? So you have, and then you have to know what your goals are. And then you can think about, okay, well, I need to make sure that the husband that I do choose is somebody who's going to accept, acknowledge, and support me in doing all these things. And like I said, I think that a lot of girls who got married a little bit younger and didn't really have the time to go through that thought process, just because when you're young, you may not even know. You may not understand yourself well enough or go through, you know, the steps in life that just take time to get to that point where you realize, okay, here's what I want to do. Here is what my goals are, or whatever. So once you have those things figured out, then it makes it much easier for you to then filter through any people who come around, you know, interested in you for marriage. There was somebody who was interested in me who just flat out didn't want me to work. And that's his right. That's okay if he wants a woman who wants to stay at home, but I just knew that wasn't me. And so that, you know, right away was just like, okay, well, sorry, this isn't going to work. So, you know, getting married at a later age for me was a huge benefit, because then I was able to really truly scrutinize anyone who kind of came through the door, to then say, okay, well, here's what I want, and if you're okay with that, then let's move forward. And of course I had my own list of expectations with my husband as well. Not really expectations, but kind of just like, you know, my things, just like that guy who didn't want a woman to work. I had my own things as well. So somebody asked me, how did you know he was the one? And do you have any advice to girls when they're deciding yes or no when it comes to getting married? So number one, pray istikhara right away, because that can filter guys out really quickly. There was somebody that I was talking to, not a very long time before I had met Ahmed, but on paper he was perfect, and my parents, my dad and my stepmom, really, really, really liked him. Our families got along really well. You know, it just seemed like a really great match. But subhanAllah, just something in me was just like, I don't know, I wasn't really feeling it. And so I prayed istikhara, and I prayed istikhara probably about like every night for maybe like a week. And every day I woke up with this feeling in my heart that was just like an unsettling feeling. And that feeling I woke up with every morning was just my indication that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling me, okay, this isn't the guy. Which gave me a lot of relief, because like I said, he was perfect on paper, right? And my parents really liked him. So I was like, okay, what's the issue? But that made me feel like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving me the answer, and I don't need to feel guilty. I don't even need to really explain myself. It's just, this isn't really going to work out. Now fast forward to when I had met Ahmed, and I prayed istikhara every day. And keep in mind, it's not that I wasn't sure, but you never really know, right? You're taking this huge leap of faith and saying, okay, this is the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. We got along very well right off the bat. We connected right away, but still, you know, that can happen any number of times. And then you hear these horror stories later on with people who are in terrible marriages. So I still wanted to have that assurance. So I prayed istikhara again, plenty of times daily. And subhanAllah, every day I woke up, I had this light feeling, and just this feeling in my heart like this was right. Alhamdulillah, and that's how I need to keep going and to proceed, and that, you know, this was the right thing. Because oftentimes we're blinded, particularly when it comes to marriage, because it's exciting, right? You're falling in love, it's romantic, it's marriage, so it's really exciting. And oftentimes we are blinded by that. So one thing I always tell girls is to really use your head. Yes, you have to use your heart. You need to be physically attracted to that person. You need to feel like, you know, this is somebody that you can fall in love with and be in love with and love. And that's, all those things are important, but at the same time, you have to use your head. Well, do our goals and aspirations life align? How does he feel about children? What are his, you know, in-laws and you know, living situations? All those things are very, very important to keep it. It's not enough that you guys are compatible and that you're physically attracted and all those things. You have to still really be rational about it and use your head to think about, okay, well, here's everything, and here's how I feel about everything. Is this going to work out? So those things are super important. Or using your head is very important. So I see all your questions, guys, and I'll get to them really in like just a second. So that's what I would recommend. First, I would pray istikhara and see how you feel, so that you can either proceed or just cut it off right away if you're feeling one way or the other. If, subhanAllah, for whatever reason, if you're not seeing anything in your istikhara, obviously along with istikhara is making a lot of dua. I would just keep praying istikhara. Just keep praying. Don't stop praying it. Inshallah, there will be something that gives you some sort of feeling one way or the other. And then, like I said, using your head and really trying to rationalize, okay, is this going to work? So I hope that made sense. If you guys need me to go into that further, let me know and I will. So let me just answer some questions before I get into the bulk of what I wanted to talk about, which is Khadijah radiallahu anha. I'm getting married soon and will be moving to live abroad. So as you can imagine, I feel a lot of anxiety with all the changes. And I've gotten into the bad habit of imagining the worst case scenarios. I would honestly be really excited moving. I moved abroad myself. My husband and I lived together in Chicago for a couple of years before we moved out here. And it was actually a really awesome experience because the two of us out here by ourselves has really strengthened our foundation in our marriage. And although I've been so far away from friends and family, which has been really difficult at times, by the same token, I don't know that my husband and I would have been able to foster the type of relationship we have today had we not been completely on our own in this foreign country that for us is both foreign. So I wouldn't feel anxious about it. I would embrace it and embrace all the changes that are going to happen in your life soon, inshallah. And inshallah, it's going to be a great time in your life. And, you know, it'll be an excellent opportunity for the two of you to build a really, really strong foundation before, you know, you have kids and all those things. What about the wedding? Should it be big or should you save to start your life? That all depends on your own preference, your family, what you can afford. I don't think that you're asking, would you be considered cheap if you have a moderate and small wedding? Of course not. Listen, your wedding is not for other people. Your wedding is for yourself, and you should do what you want and what your husband wants and what your families want. So if that means having a small and moderate wedding, which, I mean, if you use the word moderate, isn't that all Islam is about? Moderation. We shouldn't go crazy in one way, and we shouldn't also be like, forget it, I'm not going to have a wedding. I don't care about any of that stuff. No, you want your family and your friends to celebrate with you. But moderation is always the key. So do what's in your means, whatever is in your means. You know, do not take out like loans for a wedding. Don't let your parents go broke because they're paying for your wedding. Whatever you can afford and what's right for you guys is what you should do. What do you think of interracial marriage? I personally am a huge advocate of interracial marriage, and it's something that's also very much supported within our deen as well. I believe it's a hadith. I have to look this up. I don't know it like word for word, but I believe that the Prophet ﷺ said something along the lines of like, you know, finding it's good to marry outside of your culture or very, very far away from your own race. I forget exactly what the words are, but I'll tell you my own personal reason since I'm a product of interracial marriage. Number one, I feel like when you have parents who are of different races, number one, it first and foremost makes you a very open individual, whether you like it or not. For me, race has always been something that deeply touched me, and that's because I was born from biracial parents, and I you know, I was exposed to both cultures, and that made me very, very open-minded, and this concept of like I'm better than you when it comes to race was never on my radar ever. In fact, whenever anyone acted that way, my blood boils. I can't handle it when that happens. And for whatever reason, because of this open-mindedness, I grew up feeling like anything was possible. Like there were no barriers or doors closed for me because there were no cultural overtones when I grew up. It was, as you can imagine. And so I never felt like there was anything I couldn't do. Nothing was off limits. And I just felt like anything I wanted, and my parents supported that as well. Anything I wanted to do, just go get it. There's so many other reasons I can give you, but interracial marriages are awesome. Any advice on balancing work and married life? I would say to make sure that you're not neglecting your husband and you're putting him first, all his needs first. It's really important because, you know, if you are neglecting him, that is going to come through in some fashion. So you have to make sure that you are putting him first and putting yourself first even before your work. And hopefully that means spending time with your husband and having that quality time for him over your work. But I would just make sure you have a really strict schedule. And that's for me. I mean, I work daily as an attorney, and then I come home and I do Haute Hijab stuff, and then obviously I have my husband and the house and all these things. And I don't think I would be able to properly manage everything if I wasn't really strict about my time. So making sure I'm making use of the early morning hours that have the most benefit and the most barakah in them. So if you can, staying up after Fajr and getting some work done in that time before you're like headed out the door, if you work outside of the house. And then when you come home, just like having a very strict regimen of what you do, like cooking, or if you cook, when you clean, if you do that. And then the time that's just for you and for your husband. So as long as you're very organized about your time, and it's not just like every day is just a different crazy willy-nilly kind of plan, then you should be okay, inshallah. And remembering to really not neglect your husband's needs is very, very important. I'm in my final year of law school in Nija. Oh, wow. So I can relate. Inshallah, you do fantastic, and may Allah give you all the best. Said, I'm so happy you're talking about this. Please talk about how to find a partner when you're near 30 years old. You know, I have a few friends who are in that kind of age and single. And number one, I think don't despair, and don't feel like you're too old or like this isn't going to happen for me. That's totally shaitan talking. Number two, I think this now more than ever is when you need to focus on yourself and what your goals are in life and how you're going to achieve them. Because I think that the way that you're going to attract, inshallah, your potential mate is by focusing on your strengths and really playing them out. And then that person will just be like, wow, she's so independent. She's so, you know, strong-minded or really intelligent and knows what she wants. And you know what I mean? By the time you're that age, the guys that you're going to be attracting are your age or older, right? And so they're not messing around with like little girls who don't know what they want out of life. So I think now more than ever is the time when, you know, kind of what I was saying in the beginning about really figuring out, okay, well, what is my life goal? What am I trying to achieve, and how am I going to do that? And when you focus in on that and you really make that your priority, I think that inshallah things will come. And then obviously, you know, the obvious stuff, like making sure the people around you know, I'm sure that, you know, you're single, and if they know of anybody to reach out to you. I wouldn't belittle like online matchmaking sites. I wouldn't feel like you're above them, because I know their spouses through those websites, and there's nothing wrong with that, so long as you're going about it in a you know, in a halal way. So, you know, also being proactive, obviously, but really focusing in on yourself and growing as a person. I have a question about education. Should our partners be at the same level or lower? What's your opinion about that? If you and your husband don't have an issue, like for example, my husband had aspirations to go to grad school, but he just, you know, timing and the very like urgent need to support a family kind of got in the way of that. But that was never something that he felt like, oh, my wife is, you know, has this graduate degree and I don't. That never occurred, but that's also because he's a very confident, secure person. So I can't guarantee that another man might feel threatened by that. So it depends on the two people involved. Just on a basic level, there shouldn't be an issue whether or not who has more education. But I would say like somebody with just a high school education versus like a doctor, that's just going to cause a huge imbalance, because you know, somebody who doesn't even have like a college degree isn't really going to know how to relate necessarily to somebody who has like this crazy high degree. So it shouldn't be so off balance. But you know, like grad school, not grad school, I mean, in general, it's fine. It's going to depend though really on the two people involved. How do you know you are mentally ready to get married? I think you'll just know. I mean, for myself, I really did not even consider getting married until I was probably in law school. By that time, I was like I was 20, but so probably not until I was like 22 or 23 when I graduated. Because I was so focused on myself and getting this degree, and that I wasn't there. Like I wouldn't have been able to do it. But I think that you'll kind of just know. And if you have to ask yourself, like, am I ready? Then you probably aren't yet. But like I said earlier, making sure that you have your goals and aspirations clearly visualized and an execution plan in place. I think that's when that's like, okay, now you're at a good point. At least have that done before you even start thinking about it. Okay, got through all your questions. So let me get into the bulk of what I wanted to discuss, which is Khadijah radiallahu anha. So she is the best example that we can all look to as for just the perfect wife. MashaAllah, subhanAllah. So I actually took a class this past semester on Rabata. I know I talk about it all the time, but it was called Lessons from the Life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we spent some time on Khadijah radiallahu anha. So I just have some notes here that I'm going to share with you guys. So let me just talk about the qualities that she had. Number one, she knew what she wanted, right? So she was the one who proposed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And she was older than him. She was 40 when he was 25 years old. She was 15 years older. So she was not shy to say to herself, I know what I want in a spouse. And obviously we know she was widowed, right? So it's not like this was her first marriage, but even if it was, she was still willing to forego those cultural norms by, number one, proposing to him, and number two, being older than him. So she had to have been a really confident woman and confident in herself and her abilities and her strengths to forego these cultural norms and to, you know, have her friend go and approach him. I believe it was her friend, I forgot, maybe it was a relative, approach him about the prospect of marriage. So number one, she knew what she wanted, and that's really important, knowing what you want in your spouse. And before I got married, I actually had a whole list of, it wasn't a list of things I wanted, but it was a list of a dua list of things that I used to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for to grant me in a spouse. So knowing what you want is very, very important. And Khadijah radiallahu anha, she knew when she saw the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she said, I mean, who wouldn't, right? But she said, this is who I want to marry. This is it. Number two, she was an extremely supportive and an extremely loyal wife. And we know that when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in that cave in Ghar Hira, and for the first time, and he went there so many different times to go retreat and keep himself in isolation. And when he received revelation that very first time, who's the first person that he ran to? We all know that that is not his uncle. It's not his best friend Abu Bakr. It's not some, you know, clan chief of the Quraysh. It's not a man. It's a woman, and he ran straight to his wife because he knew that in her he was going to find security and safety and comfort and support. And that's precisely what Khadijah radiallahu anha gave him, was that support. She lessened the burden on him, and she supported him right away. She believed him right away. She wasn't like, what are you talking about? That didn't happen. No, she supported him also because she knew what kind of man he was, what kind of honest and righteous man he was. And she supported him emotionally, physically, by literally taking him in her arms, and mentally. She, like I said, lessened the burden. So the lesson that we need to take is, are we lessening the burden on our husbands? Or are we putting more of a burden on them? Are we their 100% support system? If something went awry, are we the first people that our husbands would turn to? And I think the goal should be that we would want to be that first person. And are we? If not, then we have to kind of scrutinize ourselves and, okay, well, what do I need to do so that I can be that person that he would turn to? How can I support him emotionally, physically, mentally, and make sure that I am his rock, I am his, you know, his support system? So that's the second thing. She was extremely supportive and a loyal wife. Number three, she was very intelligent. And this is why it's so important for us as women to continue our education and to not, forego education just to get married. If you get married at a younger age, continue with your education. Make sure that you have that behind you, because it's so important. It helps you relate with your husband. It helps you when raising your children. It helps you just being a richer individual and human being. So Khadijah radiallahu anha, she was very smart. She knew right away when this happened, when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ received this revelation, she knew right away what to do. And what was that? She knew to take him to her cousin, Waraqa bin Nawfal, who was a Christian. And amongst the Christians at the time, there were these tremblings for a while that there was this prophet that was to come. And so she knew right away, okay, we need to go and talk to my cousin, who then confirmed that, yes, your revelation was from God and you are a prophet. And it was through Khadijah, her intelligence and her intellect, to know that this is what she needed to do. And obviously, we also know that she was a very successful businesswoman. She was one of the most well-to-do or the wealthiest of business people at the time. So, and that doesn't come without being smart. She was very intelligent. So that's the third point. Number four, Khadijah radiallahu anha, she was very active in her community. We can't forget that. She did not just sit at home and cook and clean. That was not her role. She spent her hard-earned money in order to support the community of these new Muslims, particularly during the boycott. And if you remember the story of the Sirah, the Quraysh basically, after some time, maybe the third or fourth year after revelation, they decided that's it. We can't stop the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ from propagating this message, so we're going to boycott. We're not going to deal with them. Our sons and daughters aren't going to intermarry with them. They were exiled, basically. And particularly during that boycott was when Khadijah was most active, and she, as a result, spent the vast majority of her money supporting everyone, because it costed, they would raise the prices like crazy just to buy, really basic necessities. And it was due to that time that she suffered a great deal physically, and I'm sure emotionally and mentally, and she died shortly thereafter. So she was extremely active in her community. She was, and I love how our teacher put it, she was a complete Muslim before Islam itself was complete. Because she had that intellect, she knew, okay, here are my duties and here's how I can help my community. And which is extremely important for us. We can't just get married and think that our role is just at home in the kitchen, raising the children. Okay, those things, if you're lucky enough, if your husband is lucky enough for you to do all those things, that's fantastic. But that's not where it ends. We have a responsibility. Every single Muslim has a responsibility to spread the message of Islam. So how are you doing that if you're sitting at home tending to the kitchen? Really think about how you are fulfilling that duty as a Muslim, and look at Khadijah radiallahu anha as an example. We know that the angel Jibreel sent greetings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to Khadijah through the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Which, think about that, that's insane. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent greetings of peace to angel Jibreel, who then relayed that message to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I mean, that's as good as it gets. You get a greeting from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What kind of woman would she have had to be to receive that blessing? And what are the things we're doing in our lives that would warrant such a distinction? How can we get there? One thing, a beautiful story that somebody told me of somebody in our community, actually. Her father once asked her, have you seen the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in your dream? And she said, no. And he said, well, what are you doing in your life that's not allowing you to see him? I mean, that was huge when I heard that. I was like, whoa, you know, like that should be a goal, that you see the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in a dream. And, you know, that's kind of my analogy when it comes to these greetings that Khadijah received from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What are we doing in our lives that would warrant such a distinction? Or what are the things that we're doing that we shouldn't, so that we can have the hopes of seeing the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in our dreams? I want to make sure I'm not talking too much. So the main takeaway here is that the Khadijah radiallahu anha was a complete Muslim woman, and then we need to strive to be like her by utilizing our smarts, our knowing what our strengths are, having high expectations of ourselves, as she did, serving our community, and being a source of support and loyalty to our spouses and to our family. So it's very, very important to support our husbands, of course, but it's also important that we make sure that we're serving our community and we're giving back in whatever capacity that we can. Let me get back to your questions here. The website I mentioned about where I learned this information, and I'll just type it in. It's called rabata.org. And actually, you want to go here to the Ribat area, because that's where the classes are. And the class I took was called Lessons from the Life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And it's broken up into 2 parts, so it's not too late. Actually, registration for this semester is ongoing right now, and you can register right now for the second part of the class. Even if you haven't taken the first, that's okay. Like next year, you can go in and take the first one. But that's where these notes are coming from. And yeah, she's really fantastic, and I learned a ton this semester, alhamdulillah. Okay, so I'm going to wrap things up. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. But I actually, from the same teacher, I have notes that I took, man, this is back in 2011. She gave a lecture called Surviving Marriage, and I took a few notes. So let me just go through some things that I found really helpful. Number 1, she said that love is a verb. It's an action that we do, which I thought was really profound. That, you know, like we have to show our love to those that we love, and it doesn't end when we get married. When we get married, and that's it. And the thing that I liked a lot is that, and I learned this back then, and I've been referencing all the time, but she talks about this like triangle situation where at the top you have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then at the 2 bottom angles you have yourself and your spouse. And that can be any relationship in your life, whether it's a friend or a family member. But basically, you know, knowing that everything goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything. And marriage is a new opportunity to bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the 2 of you down there at the bottom. And remembering that you're never guaranteed that your husband will bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no matter what type of person you marry. So knowing that this, at the top of that triangle, is your number 1 priority. And you need to make that priority for yourself. And that was something, to be honest, that I struggled with early on in my marriage, kind of just assuming that my husband and I would be on the same level spiritually and that we'd grow together. And that's not always going to happen. So unfortunately, what happened with me is I kind of, I didn't regress, but I kind of stayed at the same level, fearing that I didn't want to, you know, grow spiritually and kind of leave my husband behind, which was a big mistake, because what I learned was that, number 1, it's my responsibility, not I can't wait for my husband. It's my responsibility that I need to bring myself closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And by doing that, hopefully your husband will follow in his own way. But making that your number 1 goal is very, very important. And remembering always this triangle, it's not just like the 2 of you here, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is at the top. And when you have that at the top, and always remembering that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, you know, He's everything, then that makes your marriage a lot easier, because it's not just the 2 of you in isolation. There's this over, you know, laying, you know, like a source, or, you know, like there's something more. There's something more. And so everything you do, every action that you do should be to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first and foremost, and then your husband. which was kind of a game changer for me when I put that into perspective. Another thing, and this is kind of getting really into like nitty gritty, but like when your husband's being selfish, or he's being difficult, or when he's being harsh, or when he's being nasty, your initial reaction would be like, bump him, right? Like, I do not need this. But it should be to be there for him, in fact, to treat him with compassion and with affection, and to hold himself to a standard that you don't even hold yourself to. If you wouldn't do that, or you wouldn't expect that type of treatment, put that aside. Just put that aside and be loving and forgiving and be caring, because that's the support that your husband ultimately needs. And 9 times out of 10, when he's being those ways, it's usually a result of something else. I was saying that earlier. And it probably has nothing to do with you. But we're unfair because we don't allow different kinds of love, and maybe we don't show our love the same way our husbands do. And so, you know, we would take to that type of behavior a certain way when we should be, you know, treating him with more compassion and with more affection when he is that way, because usually there's something there. I mean, guys don't do that for no reason. Learning to read between the lines was a really good tip, because, you know, just like how women have their own kind of secret language and we don't really say what we mean certain times, the same things kind of apply with our spouses. They don't want to admit when they're feeling down, or they're having issues at work, or whatever it is. So you need to learn truly to read your husband. When something is off, you need to know, okay, this is probably what happened, or here's how I can find out without bothering him about it. And just continually being that sense of support. So really, really knowing your husband inside and out, and learning to read between the lines of, you know, the way that he acts out, or even if he's just like sad, is really important. And, you know, the only way to really do that is to figure him out. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, don't just say what's better, but what's best. You might want to say something because that's what's fair or what's right in your own mind, but that's not necessarily what's going to be what's best. So say what's better, regardless of the situation. Another tip that was really helpful is to laugh and have a sense of humor. Be the person that you would want to hang out with. Be able to laugh at things that aren't worth arguing about. You know, keep things light. Learn, again, like figuring him out, learning his moods, his little quirks, so that you know what you need to do in your own life to make your house, you know, a happy place. And keeping things light and having a sense of humor about things is a big key to a lot of that. And for me, I know it has curbed a lot of what could have turned into potential fights by just keeping things light and laughing things off, and you know, just not taking things too personally either. Like I said, if he's being nasty or harsh or whatever it is, 9 times out of 10, it's something else that you probably just need to support him with, and inshallah, you know, it'll be fine. I think that's all I'm going to go over. And I also, the very last point is being yourself. You're taking your real self. You need to take your real self to your marriage. One thing, to be honest, that I struggled with a lot when I was meeting, you know, potential like suitors or whatever, was I wasn't bringing my real self to the table. I was bringing the person that I thought this man wanted, which is horrible, because what's going to happen, you're going to get married, and then ultimately you're going to have to be yourself, or you're going to have to keep up with some like fake facade your whole life, which is going to suck. So I needed to, actually, it was my best friend who gave me a talking to and was like, what are you doing? She was like, dude, like, what are you doing? And truly, you have to be yourself to even attract the person that you want, because you want to attract somebody who loves you for you, good and bad, everything about you. And it wasn't until I grasped that and then I met Ahmed, and I was just raw, real myself, to the point where I was like, he is not into me. But, you know, subhanAllah, same goes in marriage, taking your real self into marriage. You're taking your real self to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You might as well take your real self into your marriage and being yourself, so that, you know, there are no pretenses. It's just, this is you. And your husband will you know, needs to appreciate all that, needs to appreciate you for you. So those are my little points here. There's a lot more, but I don't want to get too much more into it. I feel like I've been talking a lot. So if you guys have any questions, and again, if I mentioned this much earlier, but for some reason, if the text, this like chat box is not working, you can Snapchat me and I'll get your question, or you can Instagram, like post something on this, the promo pic. I don't know if you could see that. And I will answer your question, inshallah. And if there are no additional questions, then inshallah we will end. I didn't want to go for too long today. This question isn't related to the topic, but how do you maintain your deen when it gets hard? I would recommend that you first listen to the last live stream that I did, which was exactly about this topic, which is kind of having like a crisis of faith and what do you do. But just really quickly, what I would say is, number one, be honest with yourself. What are the things that are making it hard for you to maintain your deen? So things that you're doing that are making it difficult, or things you're not doing that you should be doing, and be really honest, brutally honest with yourself about those things. Number two is really working on that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because if you find it hard to maintain your deen, that is probably an indication that your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is weak. So really strengthening that connection with him through dua, through prayer, tahajjud, reading Quran, all those things. And what else did I say? And just, you know, making dua, making a lot of dua. Oh, and having a support system around you. People around you that were going to bring you up, that are higher than you, you know, when it comes to spirituality, and making sure that you're hanging around people who are at your level or higher, so that they're lifting you up, and the opposite isn't occurring. What do you say to your parents who always pressure you about marriage? What would you say in a polite manner? I would let them know that the same thing that, you know, hopefully you believe in, that is, when the time is right for me, it will come, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has his plans for me, and that you are going to have supreme trust in him, tawakkul in him, that if you're not married right now, that's because now is not the right time. And what can your parents say about that if you're just like, I'm trusting in God? You know, so, and you have to first believe it too before you're going to tell your parents. If you don't truly believe that, your parents will see right through it. So you need to know that and trust that if you're not married at this moment, that's because it's just not your time right now. And maybe there's something else that you need to be learning, or you need to be doing at this moment. And that inshallah you have the trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that when it's going to happen, it will. That's what I would say to your parents. And that's kind of another thing. I don't know if it's about being in an interracial marriage, but my parents never pressured me at all, ever. Alhamdulillah, when it came to marriage, it was always just, you know, focus on school and, you know, do you, and marriage will come. That was kind of just like the tone in my household, which is very healthy, I feel, because, you know, for a lot of girls, I feel like that are forced, or not forced, but they're, like you're saying, pressured about marriage, and especially at such a young age when you don't really know yourself in a way that you do when you're older, and feeling like, okay, this guy sounds great, let's do it. Sometimes it can be difficult, you know, because when you're 18, 19, 20 and you get married, and then 26 hits and you're like, whoa, where did my youth go? Or what did I do with my life? Or what am I doing now? Or, you know, so not that it's bad to get married at a young age. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that whether you're married at 19 or you're not, you need to figure things out for yourself regardless. I hope that's coming across. Okay, so if you guys don't have any other questions, we are going to close, inshallah. And even if you do, you can send them to me personally, and I'll try and get to them in one way or another. Okay, all right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Oh, I forgot. I just remembered one more point. Sorry, which was somebody had asked me about boyfriends and what do I think about Muslims with boyfriends? Which I was like, what do you mean? What do I think about that? What do you think I think about that? Obviously, as Muslims, we do not date. And I've noticed lately that, you know, this term boyfriend has become so widespread. And, you know, when we were growing up, how dare you say like boyfriend? It was like you're talking to somebody. And even then it was a given that it was like the parents are involved. They all know what's going on. And it wasn't like you were boyfriend, girlfriend. So to be honest, I'm anxious about our youth and you know, the things that have been normalized in our communities, unfortunately. But here's what I will say about it. And I said this on Snapchat, which is, in my experience and what I've seen and observed, if your relationship starts off haram, there's a pretty good chance that it's not going to end well. That's what I'll say. So that's as overt as I can be, other than just saying that we shouldn't be dating, and you need to keep things halal. And if you want to know if a guy is serious about you or not, and if you're kind of like just like, well, he says that he wants to get married, and so we're talking, and he's a good Muslim guy. Well, how about you give him your dad's phone number and see if he's serious? That was like the total filter for any guy was, here's my dad's number. You can talk to him. If you're serious, you'll call him. And if you're not serious, then I'll know, because you don't call him. And that's the best, I feel, best way to know if a guy is serious or not, or if he's wasting your time. Give him your parents' number and see what he does with it. I just got a question on Snapchat. Sorry, I know I did closing dua already, guys. My bad. Thank you so much for doing, you're welcome. My question is, how do you define a successful marriage? This is so subjective. My answer is going to be, but I just from personal experience, number one, I think a successful marriage keeps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the center and at the top of your relationship at all times. Number two, I think a successful marriage is one in which the two of you are on equal footing. And what I mean by that is your husband sees you as his equal. Yes, you may have different roles. Even if they're super, super traditional roles, like you stay at home and you tend to the house and children and he's the breadwinner. Even then, he still needs to treat you like an equal. What do I mean by that? By truly coming to you when he needs advice, by really wanting to know your advice or your opinion on things, by thinking that you're an intelligent person just like he probably is. That's what I mean by that. So I think for me, I define a successful marriage when both parties truly see one another as equal and there isn't like a true imbalance. And that's something I've learned definitely throughout not only my own marriage, but observing other people's marriages. I've seen marriages where the husband treats the wife like a child, and it's not healthy at all. I don't, you know, the woman feels it, and she feels like, you know, as you can imagine, how would you feel if your husband was treating you like your father treats you when you were a kid? You know, so having like an adult to adult relationship rather than like a parent-child relationship, for me, I think it means that it's successful. She also asked, what's the role of the wife in a marriage? I would go back and watch the beginning part of the live stream where I talked about Khadijah radiallahu anha, but there are certain, and I actually just had a halaqah about this with my girlfriends here in Dubai, roles like rights upon a husband and vice versa. And that's like a completely different topic, but there are certain rights that we have over our husband and that they have over us as well. If you want, you can, I can hopefully send you like a link to somewhere where you can learn more about that. Do you have any special dua for this situation? 2 guys that were previously interested in me passed away. Is bad luck part of an Islamic belief? No, we don't believe in bad luck. It's extremely unfortunate, subhanallah, and Allah yarhamhum. But I wouldn't take that as a sign like, oh my God, these, you know, 2 guys that were interested in me have passed away. Am I like a, you know, I wouldn't read too much into it. It's definitely not something that we believe in. Just I don't know, that's really difficult. But, you know, that was their time. And subhanAllah, none of us know when our time will be. And, you know, just keep Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala close and know that that has nothing to do with you, and that was Allah's will. Okay, that was the final question. So let's truly close, inshallah. Let's do the dua again. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wal asr. Inna al-insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. All right, guys. If you have any topic suggestions for the next live stream, you know how to reach out to me. And I will see you next time, inshallah. All right, take care. Assalamu alaikum.